Are you or someone you know looking to buy or sell a home? When you use a HomeGain Realtor to buy or sell a home, you can get $150. Visit HomeGain.com and click on the Promo 150 banner at the top of the page to get started. Compare HomeGain Realtors and choose your favorite. Complete your home purchase or sale transaction with a HomeGain Realtor, and HomeGain will pay you $150. Get started today by going to HomeGain.com. Hi, Ryan Sloper here. Are you buying or selling a home? Having a realtor can make buying or selling real estate much easier. HomeGain can recommend and connect you with a top real estate agent in your area. Call 866-512-7918 or visit HomeGain.com. Did you know, according to a HomeGain nationwide survey, that having a realtor working for you improves your chances by 50% of getting your home sold? HomeGain can recommend and connect you with the top real estate agent in your area. Call 866-512-7918 or visit HomeGain.com.
You're listening to Real Estate Radio Washington, D.C. Metro with local expert Ryan Sloper. Now, here's Ryan.
Welcome back, Washington, D.C. Metro, to Ryan Sloper's Real Estate Radio, and I'm joined today by Louis Cammarosano, the general manager of HomeGain. Quick reminder, Real Estate Radio is designed to build the Washington, D.C. Metro's housing and credit markets one house at a time and give you good free advice. If you ever have any questions, concerns, or real estate needs, the best number to reach out to us at our off-air number is 877-245-2030. That's 877-245-2030. That's our off-air number. Remember that nobody's going to pick up. Leave a message, and we'll get back to you by the end of the day. So we were talking how the Fed meeting wrapped up last week and how that's going to affect interest rates long term, and what the potential that is for housing prices. And I wanted to continue on the reduced pace of recovery that Bernanke had said, and his quote was, the reduced pace of the recovery partly reflects factors that are likely to be temporary. In particular, consumers' purchasing power has been damaged by higher food and energy prices, and the aftermath of the tragic earthquake and tsunami in Japan has been associated with disruptions in local supply chains, especially in the auto sector. Louis, isn't this just like they take the natural disaster and they just go ahead and pawn the blame off on that?
There's always a flood or a natural disaster.
Every other week.
Yeah, and the other thing they always say is that food and energy prices, when they go up, are temporary. And then I think he also makes...
And transitory, too, right?
Where he defined transitory.
Right.
Like entire lifetime. Then food and energy prices being high actually keeps the rest of the inflation low, because people are spending more money getting to work and buying food.
Yep.
So that they can't bid up the prices of other products. And somehow that's supposed to give you comfort that you're paying more for food and energy, but, the iPad is still cheaper.
Yeah, and not to mention that you really can't have rising house prices if your food and energy is going up, because you have less dollars to spend on your house.
That's right.
So that's why I think it's comical that no matter how low they push these interest rates, it's not changing the fact that our commodity prices are rising.
Right, and if you look at throughout the world, the United States spends a lower amount of their disposable income their overall income on food and energy, and all that's happening now is we're raising the percentage of money that we spend on food and energy to third world levels.
Yeah.
Not quite yet, but I mean that's where it's headed.
Yep. And he ended that little segment with, consequently, the committee expects that the pace of economic recovery will pick up over the coming quarters, which
I don't understand where that came from, though, other than wishful thinking.
Yeah, I don't either, because, none of the trends have been saying, the employment numbers, all of that is getting consumer confidence, which is a good indicator to look at. All that's getting worse, not better.
Well, the reason he says that, I believe, is now, if you recall, he has a statement in June that he, as the all-knowing Federal Reserve Chairman, expected the economy to get better. And when it doesn't, he's going to have to say, well, due to unexpected circumstances,
right,
I'm spending more money.
Right. Yeah, we know that's coming. Well, which leads us to Thursday, where the jobless claims came in of last week and new home sales were reported. Jobless claims, our unemployment benefits increased 9,000 more to 429,000 in the week ending June 18th. And the purchase of new homes dropped 2.1% in May to a 319,000 annual rate. The median price of new properties sold declined from a year earlier. So all these trends are basically not that great nationally. Obviously, we talk every week. We try to make the show relevant to our local general area here, Washington D.C. metro area. We have actually had price increases in new homes, price increases in existing home sales as well. So Well, we're kind of isolated from the rest of the country, mainly because of our jobs. We've got a lot more jobs, a lot more money. Probably, I think we did the show, if you were listening, a couple weeks back where we talked about, the top 4 or 5 richest counties in the country. Most of them are within this Washington, D.C. metro area. So I think that's a clear indicator to me, Lewis. I mean, obviously, where you have jobs and there's more money, that things are better, including housing.
Always the case.
Always the case. So, I'm trying to think. What was Friday? GDP came out, which is always our fun one to talk about because we laugh at how they always strip out the basically the food and oil prices as well. And it looks like that there was only an annualized for the first quarter.
In the CPI, not the GDP.
Sorry, CPI. GDP is what actually came out on Friday, which the economy in the first quarter was marginally stronger than previously believed, as the Commerce Department's third estimate for GDP growth was nudged up to 1.9% annualized from the prior estimate of 1.8%, and the consensus called for a 2% growth. So these numbers are very, terrible, really. We're not getting any sort of real growth. I mean, we need growth up around 3 to 4% to get anywhere.
More than that, if you recall back in the last time we had a recession this deep, 79, 80. The growth that happened in 82, 83 was in the 5, 7, 8, it was almost near double digits, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, it was. For those of you who are not familiar, gross domestic product is the broadest measure of aggregate economic activity and encompasses like every sector of the actual economy. And if you kind of look back, we've been declining since it looks about Q4 of 09, where we were coming off the lows of Q2 of 09, which had like a basically quarterly change annualized was in the negative. So it was getting a little bit better. Now it's going worse again. So I think that's a clear indicator. And everybody's talking about that, potential double dip that's coming. I think it's inevitable that it's coming.
Well, one could argue it never rose.
Or that it never really rose. True.
Well, they say the recession ended in 2009 summer.
Well, that's like by the textbook definition of having so many negative quarters of GDP. I think that's what they were referring to, which is also another, kind of a wacky way to kind of look at the way when normally by the time you say that we're in the recession, we're recovering from the recession, you know what I mean? So by the time we say that we're in a depression, it's going to be we're basically hopefully coming out of it on the other side. They're always, really late on those type of things. But having said all that, where do you think, Lewis, that interest rates? I mean, obviously, you and I have been thinking that obviously the interest rates have got to rise in a certain amount of time. I guess with all the global uncertainty, it's kind of led us down a different path. I'm kind of thinking that interest rates are going to kind of hold steady, probably not down that 4.5% range, but maybe closer around the 5% for at least the next year to year and a half.
That could be. I mean, we're talking about very macroeconomic changes, and they may take a long time to run through the system. So it's not like you have to go out and get a mortgage tomorrow because the rate's going to shoot up. We're saying eventually they will, but when is eventually?
Exactly. And it was interesting. I was reading through the KCM blog, which had houses prices through 2015, and what they did was the bulls are saying that prices may start rebounding as early as later as this year. Some housing bears are saying the prices will drop 10 to 15%. However, the macro markets, there was a financial technology company that actually surveyed 108 economists, real estate experts, and investment and market strategists for their June 2011 home price expectation surveys, and they averaged all the opinions together, and they came up with 2011 prices would depreciate 3.52%, and 2012 prices will appreciate 0.46%, 2013 appreciate 2.18%, 2014 appreciate 2.92%, and 2015 3.47%, which accumulative appreciation, including this year's projected depreciation, will stand at 5.71% in 2015. I really can't see that. I really cannot see that. I mean, if we do have, interest rates that were to somehow, some way stay at 4.5% for the next 5 years, maybe. But I really don't think that this is really an achievable, expectation of what this survey's results are. What do you think?
Well, they do the same thing when they talk about deficit reduction. They build in 5, 6, 7% growth to offset the spending cuts they don't want to make. I keep a book in my office called Why the Real Estate Boom Will Not Bust and How You Can Profit by It. Now, this was written in the middle of 2005. In this chapter in there is no real estate bubble. As I stated earlier, there is no real estate bubble. People don't know what's going to happen in the next 5 years when they make predictions.
Right.
And it's mostly wishful thinking. And like you and I have been saying, we've been predicting interest rates to go up. We've been wrong. They haven't gone up at all.
Right.
So you can get all these economists, you can get experts and so on. Most of them are not experts because they're rich. They're experts because they're self-proclaimed.
Yes.
Because if you really were an expert, you'd have all this nailed down, and you would act accordingly.
Yeah, and I'm actually glad that we've been wrong, to be honest with you, because
Sure.
there's all my clients that I'm working with are thrilled because I'm able to get them great interest rates, So I'm happy in one sense, but in the other sense, very fearful because of the long-term prospects. And I think that's where, a lot of people are trying to, figure out, well, what's going to happen down the road. And that's why I always say, take the advice based upon right now, today, where you stand financially today, not necessarily tomorrow. Anybody can lose their job tomorrow. They can. That's just the nature of the beast. But if you're making decent money right now and you're looking into whether you should make the decision to own versus rent, and it makes sense to you, you're going to stay in the area for a while, then yeah, it's probably a good time for you to buy, especially in certain areas of the Washington D.C. metro area where we don't have enough supply of rentals to keep pace with the demand.
Ryan, one day you and I will be correct and interest rates will rise.
Right.
And, Keynes, I'm not a fan of Keynes, but he did say one thing intelligent. He, when someone said, well, markets are rational, he said, yes, but they can stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent.
Yes. That's a great quote. Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how it all...
If you're betting on interest rates going up, you've bet wrong for a year now, and you may take some comfort or some solace that one day you'll be right, but you could have lost money all year.
Yeah.
To the point where you don't have any money left because you thought it was such a certainty that interest rates are going to rise.
Yeah, and I believe that, our best guess, I'm just going to call them best guesses at this point, on where interest rates are headed. I mean, a lot of the things that we try not to take into consideration is how much the Fed is actually manipulating this stuff. If there was a free market, interest rates would be rising right now.
Well, that's true, but that's like saying if the moon was made of blue cheese, because we know there is a Fed,
yeah,
and we know it drives the economy, and we know the impact that it has. So to base our projections, if there was no Fed, you could say, well, if there was no United States or there was no China, that's not really a good way of looking at things.
Yeah, plus, it's kind of hard to get on the same wavelength as Ben Bernanke because you never know where he's going to go the next meeting. I mean,
well, you kind of do. You know where he's going to go. He's going to
print more money. We know that.
Exactly.
We know that he's printing more money. It's just a matter of how much.
Yes, but then you don't know what the impact is going to be because we've been predicting that the more he does that, the greater the chances are that interest rates will rise.
Yes. Well, like I said, I'm very happy that I've been wrong over the last 3 to 4 months about them rising, and every time that I see them tick down, like I said, I mean, they've been hovering 30-year fixed mortgages around 4.5%, 15-year around 3.67, 5-year at 3.06. And I mean, I've even seen that 5-year arm, which we were discussing last week, if you guys were listening, was that, it's even ticked into the high twos for certain clients that are at a lower loan to value. So, I mean, you're talking about rates that you could potentially lock in on a 5-year adjustable rate in the high 2% range is incredible, insane.
It's like saying that we're happy that things, we know eventually there's going to be a disaster, but that we're happy it hasn't happened. It's like you're on the Titanic and you're glad you got your haircut appointment.
Well, hopefully we'll be able to play this show back, 10 years from now, Lewis, and that we're actually wrong about that as well. You know what I mean? I hope that that's the case. If we don't change something soon, I don't see how it's not going to be the case.
Right.
But you know what I mean? Hopefully that's not going to happen. We're coming up on a break. When we come back, Lewis, we will jump into trying to remove bankruptcies from your credit report. Stay right there.